Uh, You've mentioned quite a few contradictions from the media and their presentation on things. And I think the most notorious case of this is with September 11th, 2001. You mentioned in a forum on ZNet in 2006 that you wanted to see a consensus of engineers and specialists that understand the actual structures of these buildings and their possible collapse. And there is such a group, and I'm here to tell you about that and ask you a follow-up question. It's called Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. There's a consensus of over 2,000 of them.
All right, is this a question or
Please
a
don't
statement?
interrupt. I'm asking a question. I'm setting it up. Thank you. This consensus shows that Building 7, the third building that fell on 9/11, fell in free fall speed, as this report acknowledges. Are you ready to come forward and jump on board with 9/11? I know you've mentioned it's a distraction, but there's no better case of the media covering up things than not presenting Building 7, that third building. We've all seen the other towers fall, but what about Building 7, Noam?
Well, in fact, you're right that there's a consensus among a minuscule number of architects and engineers, tiny number. A couple of them are perfectly serious. They are not doing what scientists and engineers do when they think they've discovered something. What you do, when you think you've discovered something, what you do is write articles in scientific journals, give talks at the professional societies, go to the civil engineering department at MIT or Florida or wherever you are, and present your results, and then proceed to try to convince the national academies, the professional society of physicists and civil engineers, the departments in the major universities, convince them that you've discovered something. Now, there happen to be a lot of people around who spent an hour on the internet and think they know a lot of physics, but it doesn't work like that. There's a reason why there are, there's a reason, may I finish? There's a reason why there are graduate schools in these departments and research. So the thing to do is pretty straightforward. Do what scientists and engineers do who think they've made a discovery. Now, when this is brought up, as it has been, there are one or two minor articles, like this one article that appeared in an online journal which claims to have found, where someone claims to have found traces of nanothermite in Building 7. I don't know what that means. You don't know what that means. But if it means anything, bring it to the attention of the scientific community. That's a couple of other fragments like that. So yes, there's a small group of people who believe this, and there's a straightforward way to proceed. Now, when this is brought up, there's a standard reaction. Scientists and engineers and professional societies and physicists are so intimidated by the government that they're afraid they don't have the courage to take this position. Anyone who has any any familiarity with political activism knows that this is one of the safest things you can do. It's almost riskless. People take risks far beyond this constantly, including scientists and engineers. I can have run through and can run through many examples. It's a kind of maybe people will laugh at you, but that's about it. It's an almost riskless position. So that can't be the reason why nobody's convinced. However, there's a much more deeper issue which has been brought up repeatedly, and I have yet to hear a response to it. There happens to be, whatever one thinks about Building 7, frankly, I have no opinion. I don't know as much science and engineering as the people who believe that they have an answer to this. So I am willing to let the professional societies determine it if they get the information. So whatever the facts, there's just overwhelming evidence that the Bush administration wasn't involved. Very elementary evidence. You don't have to be a physicist to understand it. You just have to think for a minute, okay? So let's think for a minute. There's a couple of facts which are uncontroversial, right? One fact that is uncontroversial is that the Bush administration desperately wanted to invade Iraq. That's a long-standing goal. There's good reasons for it. You know, second largest energy resources in the world, right in the middle of the world's major energy-producing region. You know, perfectly obvious reasons, which they in fact later stated, but they were obvious anyway. So they wanted to invade Iraq. One uncontroversial fact. Second uncontroversial fact. They didn't blame the 9/11 on Iraqis. They blamed it on Saudis, mainly. That's their major ally. So they blamed it on people from their major ally, not on the country that they wanted to invade. The third uncontroversial fact. Unless they're total lunatics, they would have blamed it on Iraqis if they were involved in any way. That would have given them open season on invading Iraq. Total support, international support, the UN resolution. No need to concoct wild stories about the weapons of mass destruction and contacts between Saddam and Al-Qaeda, which of course quickly exploded, discrediting them. No reason to invade Afghanistan, which was mostly a waste of time for them. But they didn't. Well, the conclusion is pretty straightforward. Either they are total lunatics or they weren't involved, and they're not total lunatics. So whatever you think about Building 7, there are other considerations to be concerned with.
All right, I think our speaker answered that question succinctly, so that's the only question we'll have on that topic.